On today's show, we're going to do a deep dive into Indiana's Grace Berger and Duke's Celeste Taylor in episode 6 of our 2023 WNBA Draft Prospect Profile series. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, I highly recommend flipping this over to YouTube to see the detailed analysis and video footage that come with their game. Walton Women's basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Welcome. You're welcome to basketball. My name is Hunter Cruse, and I'm a Saturday host covering the WNBA Draft and college basketball at large. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode, I'm joined by Em Adler. Em is of South Storm and heads our written coverage of the WNBA Draft at thenexthoops.com. So today's discussion, we will start off with one of the best players in the country on one of the best teams, Grace Berger. Just give me the rundown on her stat profile first.
Yeah, so Grace Berger, I guess this is technically a statistic. She will be an All-American of some sort, maybe honorable mention, because she will be on my second ballot, or my second team All-American on my ballot. But let's get into some real actual numbers here, beyond just me saying she's good. This year, per her hoop stats, she is in the 100th percentile in assists per game and the 99th percentile in assist to turnover ratio. Offensively, she's only taken just over 1 3-point attempt a game, right around her career average, and is actually running her lowest free throw attempt rate since her freshman year. But CBB Analytics still has her true shooting percentage in the 84th percentile among guards because she is just absolute money from the mid-range. For her career, she's shooting 41.7% on mid-range twos, and this year is at an excellent 43.5% on dribble jumpers. That being said, per CPB Analytics, again, the percent of her shots that come from the mid-range is 27 percentage points above national average for a guard, while her rim rate is 8.5 points lower, and that's been about the case every year. On the bright side, CPBA and Synergy both say she's a very good finisher, the latter rating her right around an average of the 70-something percentile. On top of that, she's rated out as an excellent ISO defender in recent years to go along with demonstrably plus help defense.
So with Berger, she is one of the oldest players in this class, so she has the experience, and when we're talking about her, probably her best offensive skill outside of the mid-range shooting is how she can operate with the ball in her hands. Usually at a ball screen, she's makes a lot of good decisions with the ball, and I really like her passing. I think that's one of the most fun things I'll see with her, especially on the short roll. Do you agree, with her passing ability?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Grace Berger is a point guard, true and true.
Mhm.
There was last year when it came to point guard prospects, you had, and I could be forgetting someone, but off the top of my head, it was Veronica Burton was clear first rounder. Beyond that, in terms of actual quote unquote point guards, like people who weren't going to play the two, it was like a huge drop off to like Destiny Henderson and Kayla Pointer. And there are still some folks, or there were at the time, there still are, that I may disagree with. Shout out to the Double Down WNBA podcast, who see Henny as more of a 2 guard than a 1 guard. But Henny's real strength as a point guard was being able to control tempo and pace and direct the offense in that sort of like coach on the court kind of way. And with Berger, it's not just about the age and experience with her. She's had that ability for years, and just the smoothness with which she can get an offense rolling in the half court, the way she can keep tempo up or slow it down and really find mismatches, both her own and teammates. It's really impressive. It's really hard to find someone who is going to keep an offense as steady and consistent, just in terms of the intelligent way it's run than Berger.
So with her offensive ability outside of the passing, the 3-point shot, it's taken strides, but for me, when I'm looking at her 3-point shot, it's extremely different from her actual regular jumper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to look. She's worked a lot on increasing her range, and to her credit, she's shooting over 40% from 3 this year. But what that really means is she's hit 16 threes. which, look, teams kind of respect her out there because she's going to take them, not really guarding her as a spot-up threat. On the bright side, she's a point guard who can hit jumpers. So we're not talking about a Gabby Williams problem here. We're not talking about like teams literally will not respect her unless you get the ball in her hands. It's just that she needs to keep herself moving. She needs to be active cutting. She needs to be active screening as well to make up for the lack of respect from beyond the arc. And to her credit, she does. I think she does it's hard to find things outside of volume shooting that she, or I guess just spacing in general. It's hard to find other things that she doesn't do really well in the half court.
And just that enough is like warranting a first round selection, especially in this class where you are looking for players that can like run a good pick and roll. Like we'll talk about another one next week, but whenever I'm watching Grace Berger in ball screens, her ability to pull up, rise up quickly, and she has the size advantage to where with some, we'll see with some, like you said, Destiny Henderson, she's 5'7" ish. Grace Berger is like, is it 5'11", 6 foot? That is such a big advantage for a team having that big guard that, especially on like short roll passes, or if she's going to like second side, or if she's leading any type of form of offense where she is making a decision out of it, she has the height advantage to like overhead. She has the advantage to like she's got good center of gravity. She can smart on drives. She's got good strength. She's extremely well rounded on offense, and some people will like undervalue some of the stuff she does just because like statistically it doesn't pop like as much you'll see because she's averaging like I don't know how many points she's averaging this season. Do you know how many she's averaging? Raw numbers.
I think it's like 12 and a half.
Yeah, so like some people will see, she's averaging 12 points. She's not averaging like 18, 19. But she's extremely well-rounded on offense, and there's a lot of value that comes with that for me.
I think, no, absolutely, for sure. And I think in terms of what you're saying about her size, there's one thing when you have someone 5'11", 6 foot, like you said, like with Grace Berger. It's one thing to just have that size and be able to shoot over people. And this was, sort of the thing with Caitlin Clark her first 2 years. It's changed this year, to her credit, extremely. But for her first couple of years, she was 6 foot and the jumper was what it was, and people obviously had to respect her like out to half court. But also, it wasn't that often that teams would stick a 5'8" defender on her and she would, get physical and take him to the rim. She's done that more this year. But there are players who will have size and not use it to their advantage like that. On the other hand, Berger knows how big she is. She's not just tall, like Caitlin Clark's a bit lanky. She's tall, but like Berger is strong. She has a really strong base, and you can especially see that on the defensive end, how she defends at the point of attack and on drives. But really offensively, like if there is someone smaller or weaker on her, she will absolutely take them down under the hoop and make something happen down there. You see this a lot in Big Ten play, especially when they were playing like Ohio State or Michigan, who both have like a variety of guards that they have to sort of switch in actions with, and she is taking players who are even like 5'10" or 5'11". She's taking them down towards the hoop and beating them because she is either quicker or stronger than pretty much most defenders that she's going to be dealing with.
And do you project her as like a starting level guard? Because I know she's outside of your lottery, so where are you on like that kind of thing? Like how you project her out to be?
I think it's really delicate, to be clear. And also I should say before getting into that level, I will say I mentioned that she's a great ISO defender. At least she's rated out as that. She's a really, really good defender. Like one of the things about her, ability to toggle on offense, both, in terms of different roles on the ball, but also being able to pass and then, space to the short corner, set screens for teammates, operate like that, is she adds a lot of value in terms of that same toggle ability and versatility on defense, because she can legitimately guard one through three because of how strong her base is and because she's really, really good at the point of attack. She's great going over ball screens, good going under ball screens, and she is really, really good at one pass away help and positioning. So I think that gives her just a really strong floor as a prospect. I think in terms of being a starting caliber guard, it's a bit of a delicate package we're talking about here. because to make that work, aside from adding a three-pointer or adding really volume to the three-pointer without sacrificing efficiency, she would basically have to be able to continue hitting mid-range shots exactly as she's hitting them now and have basically no drop-off in efficiency. And, that's really tough to ask of a prospect, just to be as good as you were in college, like at the same level of efficiency. So I don't know that the ceiling is there for that in that aspect. It's certainly possible, and but the real wrap on her development as a player over the past few years is she's gotten a lot more polished within her skill set, and I think that bodes well for her ability to like make a roster and stick. But I don't think that necessarily bodes well for looking for massive upside here.
So after the break, myself and Em will dive into Duke's Celeste Taylor. Okay, so let's talk about Celeste Taylor for Duke. She was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year this season. She is one of the finalists to be a National Defensive Player of the Year winner. She probably won't win it, but she is. That's notoriety, especially because there's not many. I don't know how if you have the list right here, but it's like how many wing players? It's maybe her and Bree Beal, maybe.
She is a damn good defender, obviously. She's rated out on synergy at least, quote unquote, very good on pick and roll defense, isolations, and off screen actions over the past couple of years. Basically, all the stuff a guard wing defender has to deal with. Across her 4 college seasons, here's where CBB Analytics has ranked her among guards in terms of steals and blocks per possession: the 92nd percentile, the 94th, the 92nd, the 97th. It's just a little ridiculous. You know what you're going to get out of her every year, and it's just an insane amount of deflections in every possible way, and that leads to a lot of transition offense. She's a really good player in transition offense generally, and that is very important because it makes up for some sort of plateauing on the offensive end, I'll say. Like her field goal percentage on her jumper overall, off the catch, off the dribble, everything improved every year from her freshman season in Austin through last year. But her catch and shoot numbers are down this year, and though her dribble jumper has improved, it's still not as high as you'd want it to be to like even hit like break even efficiency. Like where Berger is solidly above sort of like the break even point for like where it's efficient enough to be taking mid range shots. Celeste is pretty solidly below it. And like with Berger, on the other hand, it's not an optimal shot distribution for Celeste. She's nearly 6 percentage points above average in mid-range attempt rate, 8 points, and these are per CPP analytics, 8 points lower in the paint and 4 percentage points lower at the rim. She's at least good at finishing from the paint, and she improved her rim finishing significantly this year from last, but she's been solidly below average on non-paint twos her entire collegiate career. On the bright side, she is about average in overall scoring efficiency, thanks to a decent percentage from 3 and a decent ability to run pick and rolls and just stick within the flow of an offense. But if you are sort of weighing her overall skill set here, it's the defense first, transition second, half-court offense third.
So, like you said, run down with those kind of stats. What I've been trying to do is trying to contextualize current prospects to past prospects in terms of their stats. Because it's easier to make a player comparison just off like the eye test and the viewpoints. These aren't player comparisons, but just trying to see how stat profiles align, just because it can kind of get like bundled up a little bit with different prospects and everything. So the 3 players that I found to be like most similar to Celeste in terms of like her like rate stats was Dejanay Carrington, Raquana Williams, and then also Brittany Sykes. Brittany Sykes is the closest player, I would say, of the 3.
And are these players while they were in college or in the pros?
These are their college. These are their college profiles, senior season.
Sure.
When it comes to Celeste on offense, how I kind of view her is to kind of stick in the league. I think she needs to be like at least like a 50th, 40th, 45th percentile shooter, because if she is an average shooter, where she's like right now, she's like 33%, which is kind of around the WNBA average. I believe it's like 34.6% is the league average shooting percentage. So if she's an average offensive spacer and she's a good finisher, just kind of cutting out those mid-range jumpers as much as she can, the defense I think is good enough to where she can be like a 15 to 22 point per minute player. whether that's like a starter, like a low end starter, or if she's like a good 7th, 6th player off the bench. That's kind of how I project her offensive profile.
Yeah,
And I
pretty
think,
much.
yeah,
No, I mean, from that aspect, like what you're hoping for here, if you're going to basically turn her into the best version of herself, is unless the 3-part percentage is going to jump up somewhere near 36-37%, which is where it was earlier in the season this year, and then her past basically month and a half has just been incredibly cold. Unless you're going to do that, you basically just want to say, hey, don't take a jumper, just get to the rim on every possession. Because she has really good burst, and she has the ability to finish through contact, or at least drive, but she finishes around contact more than she finishes through contact. And that's not the easiest thing to fix, but it is also fixable. But I don't want to say fixable, but it is adjustable. If you can turn into that, then we're basically talking about like a slasher and D type player here, someone who just basically attacks off the ball on offense, does your gritty work, which she's really good at that, like little gritty stuff on offense. And on the defensive end, because it's the lower usage offensive role in that aspect than it is now at Duke, then you can run her wild offensively.
and
And
where are
here's the
you
thing.
at?
I was gonna say, just here's the thing. You were talking about prospect comp statistically. CBB Analytics has a tool where you can compare a player's like it's not the core 4 factors, but like CBB Analytics has like a core 16 stats grouped into 4 categories, and her closest comps are they're not that close. It drops off pretty quickly, but like some notable names above or like in her top 12 are Jerkayla Jordan, Maddie Westbeld, JJ Quinterly, Jordan Horston, Isaiah James, Jordan King. Those are good players, but I've just mentioned a bunch of players who are a lot stronger offensively and also a lot, like, notably taller than she is and better in the mid range. So, the general outline of her skill set as it currently stands, offensively specifically, it needs to be adjusted. But like, again, the level of defense we're talking about here is something where you can really afford to say, we're taking an offensive project because the defense is just going to be that good.
And where are you at on her passing ability? Like there's some times where she has moments, but other times she will force passes.
Yeah,
She'll
I mean, I would solidly call it good enough, I guess. Like, look, if you're taking her to play, like the 2 as a combo guard next to a combo guard at the 1, it's not going to work. Like playing her next to, like, I don't know, Rachel Banham, if you're the Lynx and you have the 12th pick and you pick her to play the 2 next to Rachel Banham, that's not going to work. But if you take her and play her next to, like, a full true point guard, if you play her next to, New York doesn't have a pick, but like if you play next to Courtney Vandersloot, if you play her even next to someone like Ty Harris in Dallas, who is very much a point guard in tempo and playmaking, it'll work. If you play her in Los Angeles next to Jasmine Thomas, it'll work. You're not getting plus passing, but I don't think you're getting significantly below average passing either.
So let's kind of shift into the context of this class and some potential landing spots for her. So, like we said, she's probably going to need a good passing point guard to surround herself with, and likely someone that can also shoot, just because you don't want 2 kind of like subpar shooters in your backcourt, ideally.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Ideally. So, like you said, around her range for me is like anywhere between 7 to like 15. I think I could see her going in this class, maybe.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but like the way that this class is generally seen is you have your clear number 1, you have your clear number 2. You generally have a group from like 3 to 5-ish, maybe 3 to 6, depending on the team, and a couple teams have different names. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to. I mentioned this a few pods ago, but I wouldn't be shocked to see certain players like, I don't know, Maddie Segrist or someone go in the lottery, which is above where we would normally expect them to, because a team has them in their like 3 to 5 range where the rest of the teams don't. but generally locked on 1, locked on 2, a group of 3 to 5, and then from like 6 to 18, it's just a bunch of names in any order. And Grace Berger probably ends up in that 6 to 18 range, probably on the much higher end. Celeste Taylor is probably also decently on the higher end of that, like 6 to 18 range, but she could go anywhere in there. I think she kind of fits the profile of your usual kind of like late first, early second round pick, certainly better than that range last year. I think, when you're looking at who has picks in those range, it would make a lot of sense for the Fever. It makes sense for the Dream. It makes sense for the Storm. It makes sense for the Wings. It makes sense for, those are actually everyone who has the picks in that range, because all the teams those teams just repeat in the mid-second round.
I do think Atlanta's philosophy is like kind of Celeste Taylor.
Yeah, she would just I mean, she would basically fit in straight where Erica Wheeler was last year. If they played Erica Wheeler like a point guard, but like in terms of like skill set and the likely talent of production in a given role, it's probably going to end up not being significantly worse given Wheeler's efficiency last year, or lack thereof.
And then also there's Dallas. I don't think Dallas would be great.
We don't
want
anyone to go to Dallas, to be clear.
No, we don't. Another team, Los Angeles. I don't think they're going for a player of this caliber.
I mean, I think they're pretty much set with their roster as is at the moment. Yeah. But no, certainly they need more wing help than they need guard help. And Celeste Taylor can defend wings, but she's not going to be someone that could be mistaken for a front court player.
Oh yeah, I don't think she has a strength to
No.
Yeah, no.
She has that sort of length where her length is an extreme advantage against players of the same height, but the length doesn't allow her to play up a position.
So let's shift our focus to BYU transfer. She's now at Texas. Shaylee Gonzales.
So yeah, the stat rundown for Shaylee, it's pretty straightforward. There's not as much, I think, that stands out as the other two we've talked about so far in Berger and Taylor, but it's a lot more film. But in terms of the stats that do have here, the first thing that stands out when we're talking about a guard with her shot distribution is she's a career 31% shooter from 3, which is not great. But she's at 34.4% this year, and her career free throw percentage is just shy of 80%, having increased every year, and sitting north of 87% the line this year. She's also rated as quite a good finisher every year by both CBD Analytics and Synergy. So there is reason to think that what we're seeing this year in terms of her shooting in Austin is probably a little more representative of what she would be going forward than the couple down years she had at BYU. In terms of play types, she's pretty versatile. She's rated out as a very good pick and roll handler, a cutter, an off-screen player, and a transition player over the course of her career for Synergy. On the other side of the court, she has ranked by her stats as one of the best guard defensive playmakers, including ranking in the 96th and 97th percentiles in skill rate her last 2 years in Provo. Generally, she isn't quite as mid-range heavy as the last two we talked about on this episode. She's got a pretty even shot distribution, probably doesn't get to the rim as much as you would want for a player who's not a knockdown shooter, but certainly has a decent, doesn't rely on the mid-range too strongly. And we've certainly seen every time in Utah, she can get downhill when she's running, when the ball's in her hand as a pick and roll player. And yeah, there is reason to think that, where with Grace Berger, we talked about it's going to be that you want to be in the exact same role. With Celeste Taylor, it's a little bit of an offensive project changing the role. With Shaylee Gonzales, she's shown at times the role that you'd want her to be in.
And do you think that role is like a secondary ball handler? Is that kind of where you view her as?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I think if you have another combo guard in the lineup, then maybe you could try her at the 1. She played effectively point guard for BYU in her time there, and she had, she was really good in terms of just the numbers of playmaking. She had a really good assist turnover ratio. But I mean, you can see at Texas, and actually, it gave us a really good opportunity in the beginning of the year to sort of see the limitations here. So Texas point guard Rory Harmon, last year's Big 12 Freshman of the Year. This year, probably not going to win it, but certainly a contender for Big 12 Player of the Year. Roy Harmon is their point guard, and she missed, I want to say the first like 5 or 6 games of the season or something. But Texas started off with some real tricky games. Most notably they played UConn. I want to say in like their third game of the season, and you could tell that basically Shaylee does not have the juice just as a pure handler to really beat high press. Nika Mule basically single-handedly shut down the entire Texas offense just by applying ball pressure to Shaylee Gonzales and just preventing her from getting into what Texas wants to do. Some of that's on Texas. Vic Schaefer runs a dribble drive offense, and Shaylee Gonzales is 100% a pick and roll offense player. She is absolutely not a dribble drive offense player. So some of that's on him for just not adapting, but also, once Rory Harmon came back, you could see how Shaylee Gonzales much more easily fit in to being able to start off the ball, get the ball, make some stuff happen after.
And then on the defensive side of things, I think she has the size. She has some of the tools, the instincts that you kind of look for the smart side of things. But she has had some injuries in the past, and do you think that's hampered her athleticism in any way? Like,
I did not watch her. I did not watch much college basketball generally, but I did not watch her for sure. Prior to her, I think, end of freshman year ACL tear, she still wears the brace, despite it being basically 2 years since she would have been cleared to take it off. That's neither here nor there. That is just a statement on her basketball aesthetic. In terms of athleticism, I can't say one way or another. I think offensively, you can tell that she has really good. She has quite solid burst. She has really good lateral quickness, and she accelerates pretty well. But she doesn't have the same level of top speed that. Celeste Taylor is obviously really fast, but she doesn't have like that level of top speed, and that's, I think, one of the reasons she needs a ball screen to be able to get downhill, despite having a well-controlled dribble, despite having good burst. And I think defensively, you can sort of see that come into play. She's not, like you said, she has the size. She flashes some of the skills. One of the reasons I'm high on her overall, and I think high relative to like the entire class, not relative to other first round prospects. She's one of the lowest ranked that I've had of players that we have dove into. But one of the reasons I just like her generally is because she can hold up at the point of attack. She's not going to be good there, I don't think, or at least hasn't been. She can hold up there enough, but she's a really, really good help defender. Like, she has really like outstanding instincts, especially for a guard, for being able to navigate to tagging the roller, to trapping the box, to helping up and improvise rotations when teammates mess up. She really fills a lot of gaps there, and she really makes a lot of really good defense happen from the backside. That's one of the reasons her steal rate's so high. It's just because of the way she fills gaps and just makes up for providing help defense. If you compare her with someone who is a point of attack defender, then you're really cooking with gas. I think it is a little tricky though to be a secondary ball handler and also better at help than at the point of attack, because then what you're asking for is her backcourt mate to be a point guard who is also a point of attack defender, and we don't have too many of those in the W.
and then I think what we're talking about with these three players in general is, on one end, you have someone like Grace Berger, who I believe is more of like your lead guard. I think her floor is super high. She's kind of like, obviously she can still develop as a player, but you kind of know what she's going to be. On the other end, we have Celeste Taylor, who we kind of have an idea who she's going to be, but there's a lot of like holes in her game, a lot of stuff that's like to watch. And then with Shaylee, you're kind of like in the middle, where on one end, like you say, the shooting is a question, but she's taking some strides. You don't really say that shooting's gonna, like, I don't think either of us expect her to become like some 38% shooter.
Nope. But I think she has enough juice as a driver, and she has some really good moves going downhill. It's just tough to break those out at Texas the same way that she did at BYU, just with the extent of the poor spacing you're working with in the dribble drive offense. Like, you're expected to just get from the wing or get from the key to the rim. You're given no space. You have two bigs with you at basically all times. I think you're looking at someone who can just sort of be an all-around scorer more than and be well and good efficient enough from basically every spot that she's like that she could be an above average scorer. But certainly she's not going to be just a spacer or like just a rim pressure threat.
Yeah, so she's multifaceted at the guard position, and that's sort of what you look for, like in these
Mhm.
draft picks. Outside of like, oh, your lead guard lottery pick, we don't have many in this class besides J.C.
Yep.
Sheldon. So if you don't have that elite guard in the lottery, you're kind of just looking for players that are solid and you can actually trust to be out on the court and provide average to above average offense or an above average defense as well. And then like because most teams, it kind of differs from the NBA side of things where you're running through your post players most of the times. That's
Mhm.
kind of how you're generating your offense. So you're just looking for these players on the outside to just be spacers. And then also just, okay, can they drive? Can they attack the rim? Can they set up their bigs? And that's kind of what Shaylee can do. Like you said, with the pick and
Mhm.
roll ball handling, like the cutting. Those are situations where she can play off the star and also help set up a star.
Mhm.
So I think in her situation, we are looking at probably someone that's like in the radar of like the second round radar, late first round, if a team feels comfortable with her, because I think
Yeah,
like
and
you said,
that's where I have her. Yeah,
yeah,
I have her as my number 11 at this moment. I think for sure, and I think I think if the three is hitting at 34%, um, then she's someone very much worth a roster spot. I think if the three is hitting at 35 or 36%, then that is someone with a decently promising future, at least at hitting those numbers at the WNBA level, not necessarily at college. Um, the qualm for me, or not the qualm, but like the issue I anticipate is that I don't think there's a lot of teams who are willing to wait and see on a player if she's not shooting great from three in camp and in preseason, and teams only have like 3 preseason games. If she's not shooting well in that very small sample size, then I don't think, given how the WNBA is set up, I don't think that teams are going to wait and see, and I think that is a shame given a lot of the players that teams have decided to continue rostering, despite knowing what you're getting and you're not getting much.
hmm So thanks for making Locked On Basketball your first listen today. Now make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Next week, myself and Em will dive into our scouting reports on South Carolina guard Zaya Cook, and then also Oregon guard India Rogers next week.